Hey guys, Matt and Preston here, Nomad Church Collective. We just want to wish you a happy new year, and we wanted to come to you real quick, just give you a quick update and some vision for the next year.
So as Matt and I got together and prayed about 2018, as we met with our board and prayed and met with a lot of our supporters and prayed about what God has in store for the next year, one of the biggest things on our heart is that God is calling us to move even further than just New Albany. This is a map of New Albany behind us. A lot of ground to cover. By no means have we covered all that ground, and we're not abandoning New Albany. In fact, we're going to stay here in New Albany as our home base. But we feel like God is asking us to move into the poor and marginalized populations of Clarksville and Jeffersonville, maybe downtown Louisville a little bit. Matt's going to talk a little bit about what that'll look like. But in general, we really feel this pull to start touching base with people in these populations all across the region.
So one of the ways that we're going to be engaging the community is by riding the TARC bus. Now, in the wintertime, this is going to be a great opportunity as people are kind of bundled up and getting on the bus to be able to connect with them to and from their destinations on the bus, and sometimes it can be a long trip, sometimes a little short trip. We've already done this once already, and ran into some people we knew, got to engage some people we didn't know. This also allows us to engage with one another in gospel conversations that kind of happen in the midst of this whole atmosphere on the bus, which might spark something else. But as we do this, this also gives us the opportunity to travel to and from some different places in southern Indiana as this bus line travels through downtown Louisville into Jeffersonville and Clarksville and all the different parts of the neighborhood in New Albany too. And so during the winter months, while we are able to engage on the bus, I'll just be praying that through this we're able to meet new people, to engage them, to build relationships with them on the bus.
One of the most vital relationships that we're required to build as believers is with one another. And we really are praying and hoping that God will help us connect to local churches. As a ministry that's non-denominational, we're not really affiliated officially with any church. It gives us the opportunity to step into several different Christian traditions in the area and talk about what it looks like to care for the poor, what each church can do. And we've done that quite a bit here in New Albany, but we're also praying that God helps us to connect with other pastors and other leaders and other members of churches all across southern Indiana and maybe into Louisville as well, because we really think this is a move of God to start caring more deeply for the poor and marginalized. And we know that God uses the church mainly and maybe only to do this work for His glory and for His kingdom. So with that, I want to take a moment and just make a petition here. You know, Matt and I are two guys, and we have volunteers. We have guys who come down with us and walk the neighborhood. We pray together. We meet the poor and marginalized together. But we know that with just the few of us, we can't accomplish this work. You know, Jesus tells us that we are to pray for God to send out workers into His harvest, and that the harvest is plentiful. And we pray about that all the time, and we're asking you to pray for that as well, whether God just wants you to pray for it, or maybe He's calling you to step out and start caring for the poor and marginalized, whether you live in our area or whether you live somewhere else. Maybe God is calling you to take part in this movement of reaching out and getting to know the poor, because it's less about finances of the poor and their living conditions and their basic physical needs. What it's really about is that there are people who have been abandoned, and that's where that word marginalized comes from, pushed to the edge of society, who God is calling not just me and Matt, not just our small group of volunteers, but the entire church, people like you, to go out and to build true friendships with these people who have very few friends, and to see what that loving relationship can do in their lives. So that's just a challenge and a petition to ask you to pray how God might use you to care for the poor and marginalized in your area.
And guys, as we start this new year, like Preston said, please be in prayer for us, be in prayer for these communities that we've just spoken about. And guys, like we said, as you look at what this year might have to hold for you, search your heart. And search the scriptures and see what God might be calling and speaking to you. And maybe that might include coming down and joining us.
Absolutely.
We love you guys.
Love you. Have a good year.